The notification from my bank app woke me at 3:47 a.m. I squinted at the screen, expecting another fraud alert about some suspicious charge in another state. Instead, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A wire transfer request for $340,000 from my business account. Authorized by Marcus Webb. Co-owner. My brother was not a co-owner of my business. He had never invested a single dollar. He had never worked a single shift. Yet somehow, his name was on paperwork I had never seen, claiming ownership of the company I had spent 7 years building from my grandmother's garage into a legitimate enterprise. I sat up in bed, fully awake now, my heart hammering against my ribs. The bedroom of my small apartment felt suddenly claustrophobic, the walls pressing in as I scrolled through my banking history with trembling fingers. This was not a mistake. This was theft. And the thief was family. I need to go back to explain how I ended up here, staring at my phone at 4 a.m., watching my life's work being stolen by the brother who had tormented me since childhood. My name is Derek Webb. I'm 32 years old, and I own a custom furniture restoration business in Austin, Texas. Or I thought I owned it, until my brother Marcus decided he deserved half of everything I had built. Growing up, Marcus was always the favorite. 3 years older than me, he had the looks, the charm, the athletic ability that made our parents beam with pride. I was the quiet one, the awkward kid who preferred woodworking in our grandfather's shed to playing football with the neighborhood kids. Our parents never tried to hide their preference. Marcus got the new car for his 16th birthday. I got his old one, with a transmission that ground like broken glass every time I shifted gears. Marcus got a full ride to college, partially funded by our parents' savings account they had started when he was born. When I asked about my college fund, my mother laughed and said I would figure something out. I was resourceful like that. I figured something out. All right. I worked at a lumberyard during high school, learning everything I could about wood grain and joinery from the old-timers who took pity on the skinny kid asking too many questions. I apprenticed with a furniture restorer on weekends, learning to breathe life back into pieces that others had abandoned. I took community college classes at night while working full-time during the day. Marcus, meanwhile, dropped out of his expensive university after 2 years. He had found his calling, he announced. Day trading. Our parents nodded supportively and continued funding his apartment while he lost thousands of dollars on speculative investments. By the time I was 25, I had saved enough to rent a tiny workshop space and officially launch web restoration. The name was a nod to our family, a gesture toward connection that seems pathetically naive in retrospect. The first 2 years were brutal. I ate canned soup for dinner most nights. I slept on a cot in the back of the workshop when I could not afford both rent and utilities. I took every job that came my way, from refinishing scratched dining tables to painstakingly restoring antique pieces that museums had given up on. Slowly, word spread. A restored Victorian dresser caught the attention of an interior designer. A salvaged church pew became a featured piece in a magazine article about sustainable design. My client list grew from desperate homeowners with damaged furniture to collectors and businesses seeking authentic restoration work. By the time I was 30, web restoration occupied a proper workshop with 3 employees. We had a waiting list of clients. I had moved out of my cramped apartment into a small house I had purchased with my own money, no help from anyone. My parents mentioned my success exactly once, when they needed someone to restore a water-damaged hutch that had belonged to my grandmother. They expected the work for free, of course. Family helps family, my mother said. I did the restoration without charging them, spending 40 hours bringing the piece back to life. They never thanked me. Marcus, during those same years, had cycled through day trading, cryptocurrency schemes, a failed food truck venture funded by our parents, and most recently, a consulting business that seemed to consist mainly of posting motivational quotes on social media. He was 35 years old and still lived in an apartment our parents subsidized. He drove a car they had co-signed for. He ate Sunday dinners at their house every week, basking in their continued support while I had not been invited to a family meal in over 2 years. I did not mind the distance. Honestly, it was easier. I had built a life separate from their favoritism and expectations. I had employees who depended on me, clients who trusted me, a business that bore my name and represented everything I had worked for. Then Marcus discovered that I was successful. The first hint of trouble came 6 months before the wire transfer incident. Marcus called me out of nowhere, something he had not done in years. "Little brother." His voice carried that familiar, condescending warmth. "I've been hearing things about your furniture business. Sounds like you're doing pretty well for yourself." I was in the middle of stripping varnish from a 1920s writing desk. I wedged the phone between my ear and shoulder, continuing to work. "It's going okay." "More than okay, from what I hear. A friend of mine saw an article about you in some design magazine, said you were restoring pieces for some pretty high-end clients." "I've been lucky." "Lucky?" He laughed. "That's modest of you. Listen, I've been thinking. Family businesses are big right now. People love that heritage angle. What if we partnered up? Web and web restoration has a nice ring to it." I set down my scraper. "You want to partner with me?" "Why not? I've got business experience, marketing, networking, client relations. You've got the hands-on skills. Together, we could really grow this thing." "Marcus, I've been building this business for 7 years. I have employees, established clients, systems that work. I'm not looking for a partner." The silence that followed carried a chill I recognized from childhood. The sound of Marcus not getting what he wanted. "Think about it," he said finally. "Family should stick together. Help each other out. That's what Mom and Dad always taught us." He hung up before I could respond. I stood in my workshop, surrounded by the smell of wood shavings and linseed oil, feeling an unease I could not quite name. Over the following months, Marcus called regularly. Each conversation followed the same pattern. He would present a new angle for why we should partner, I would decline, and he would end the call with thinly veiled frustration. He suggested he could handle the business side, while I focused on craftsmanship. I explained that I already had a business manager, a woman named Carla, who had been with me for 3 years. He proposed bringing in new clients through his network. I pointed out that my waiting list was already 6 months long. He offered to invest capital for expansion. When I asked how much capital, he stammered something about leveraging future returns. Finally, I told him directly that I was not interested in any kind of partnership, investment, or collaboration. The business was mine. I had built it alone. I intended to run it alone. "You're making a mistake," Marcus said. "You can't do everything yourself forever. And when you need help, remember who you turned away." The morning after the wire transfer notification, I drove directly to my bank. The branch manager, a woman named Sandra who had handled my business accounts for 5 years, met me with an expression that mixed professional composure with genuine concern. "I flagged the transfer as soon as I saw it," she said, leading me to her office. "It hasn't gone through yet. But Derek, there's a problem." She showed me the paperwork. A business partnership agreement dated 4 years ago, purportedly signed by both me and Marcus, establishing web restoration as a joint venture with equal ownership shares. The signature on my line was close to authentic. Close enough that someone unfamiliar with my handwriting might accept it. "This is forged," I said. "I never signed this. I've never had a partner." "I believe you, but this document was filed with the state. According to official records, Marcus Webb is a 50% owner of your business." The room seemed to tilt. 4 years ago. He had been planning this for 4 years, ever since he first became aware of my success. He had forged documents, filed false paperwork with the state, and waited for the right moment to claim what was mine. "What can I do?" Sandra's expression was sympathetic but guarded. "You need a lawyer. A good one, and you need to move fast. Because according to these documents, Marcus has every right to access business accounts, make financial decisions, even dissolve the company if he chooses." I spent the next week in a blur of legal consultations and document gathering. I hired an attorney named Thomas Chen, a sharp-eyed man in his 50s who specialized in business litigation and fraud cases. His retainer fee took a significant chunk of my savings, but his reputation was impeccable. "Your brother knew what he was doing," Thomas said after reviewing everything. "The forged partnership agreement, the state filing, the timing. He waited until your business was valuable enough to be worth stealing, then made his move. Can we prove the signature is forged? We can get a handwriting expert. We can demonstrate that you had no knowledge of this supposed partnership. We can show that Marcus has never contributed anything to the business, never worked there, never invested a single dollar. Thomas leaned back in his chair. But here's the complication. Your parents are involved. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? The partnership filing was witnessed and notarized. Guess who served as witnesses? I closed my eyes. Of course. My parents had helped him. They had probably watched him forge my signature, then added their own names to make the fraud look legitimate. This is going to get ugly, Thomas warned. Are you prepared for that? Taking legal action against your brother means taking action against your parents too. They're complicit in this fraud. I thought about the childhood I had endured, the favoritism, the dismissal, the constant message that I was less worthy of love and support than my brother. I thought about the 7 years I had spent building something from nothing, while they continued pouring resources into Marcus's endless failures. I'm prepared, I said. Let's do it. The lawsuit I filed alleged fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to commit theft. It named Marcus as the primary defendant and my parents as co-conspirators. The local news picked up the story because business fraud cases involving family members generate clicks and outrage. Marcus's response came through his own attorney, a slick man named Patterson, who seemed to specialize in making lies sound reasonable. According to Marcus, I had willingly entered into the partnership years ago. I had benefited from his business guidance and connections. Now that the company was successful, I was trying to cut him out and keep everything for myself. My parents issued a statement through Marcus's lawyer. They were heartbroken. They said that their youngest son would turn on his family this way. They had witnessed the partnership agreement in good faith, trusting that both their sons were entering into an honest arrangement. Derek had always been the difficult one, they noted. Always resentful, always keeping score. This lawsuit was just another example of his inability to accept family support gracefully. The narrative they constructed was infuriating in its thoroughness. I was the villain. They were the victims. Marcus was just a brother trying to help, betrayed by my jealousy and greed. But narrative was not evidence, and evidence was what would matter in court. The discovery phase of the lawsuit produced exactly what Thomas had predicted. We subpoenaed Marcus's financial records, his communications, his tax returns. The picture that emerged was damning. Marcus had never contributed a single dollar to web restoration. He had never performed any work for the company. He had never attended a meeting, signed a legitimate business document, or had any involvement whatsoever in operations. The handwriting analysis confirmed what I already knew. The signature on the partnership agreement was a skilled forgery, likely traced from authentic examples of my signature found on other documents. The expert identified specific inconsistencies in pen pressure and letter formation that proved it was not genuine. Most devastating was the evidence recovered from Marcus's own phone and computer. Text messages between him and my parents discussing the plan in explicit detail. Once the paperwork is filed, he won't be able to do anything about it, Marcus had written to my mother 3 years ago. By the time he figures out what happened, I'll have legal ownership. Then we can finally get our fair share. My mother had responded with a thumbs-up emoji, and the words, "It's about time. He's been selfish with that business long enough." When Thomas read those messages aloud during a deposition, my mother burst into tears. She claimed the messages were taken out of context. She insisted she had never meant to hurt me. She said she just wanted her sons to work together, to be close like they were supposed to be. When were we ever close? I asked, breaking my attorney's instruction to remain silent. When I was working 2 jobs while you paid Marcus's rent? When you funded his failed businesses while I ate canned soup in my workshop? When exactly was this closeness supposed to have happened? My mother had no answer. Neither did my father, who sat stone-faced beside her, his jaw tight with suppressed anger. Marcus was worse. Under oath, he tried to maintain his story, but the evidence was overwhelming. When Thomas presented bank records showing Marcus had never made any payment to the business, had never received payment from the business, had no financial connection whatsoever, Marcus stumbled through weak explanations. It was a silent partnership, he claimed. I contributed strategic guidance. Can you describe one piece of strategic guidance you provided? Silence. Can you name one client you brought to the business? Silence. Can you identify one employee you hired, one tool you purchased, one project you managed? Marcus's attorney objected repeatedly, but the damage was done. The jury, when we eventually reached trial, would see exactly what had happened here. The trial lasted 4 days. The courtroom was small, utilitarian, nothing like the dramatic settings depicted on television. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The air conditioning rattled periodically. My family sat on one side. I sat on the other, flanked by Thomas and my business manager Carla, who had insisted on attending every session. Thomas built our case methodically. He presented the forged signature analysis. He showed the timeline of Marcus's fraudulent filings. He played the text messages between my brother and parents, letting their own words convict them. The witnesses we called painted a clear picture. My employees testified that they had never seen Marcus at the workshop, never received instructions from him, never even heard his name mentioned in business contexts. My clients confirmed they dealt exclusively with me. My suppliers, my accountant, my insurance agent, everyone who had any connection to web restoration, confirmed that the business was a sole proprietorship run by one person, and one person only. Patterson, Marcus's attorney, tried to muddy the waters. He suggested that partnership agreements did not require physical presence. He implied that I had agreed to the arrangement and then changed my mind when the business became profitable. He even tried to argue that family obligations created implicit agreements that superseded formal documentation. The judge, a stern woman named Harrison, who had been practicing law for 30 years, was not impressed. "Counselor," she said during one particularly reaching argument, "are you suggesting that because the plaintiff has a brother, that brother automatically deserves ownership of businesses the plaintiff creates? Is that seriously your position?" Patterson backpedaled rapidly, but the damage was done. My parents testified on Marcus's behalf. Their performance was polished, clearly rehearsed. They spoke about family values and obligation. My mother cried, describing how I had always been withdrawn and difficult, how they had tried so hard to bring me into the family fold, only to be rejected time and again. Under cross-examination, Thomas asked simple questions. "Did you ever contribute to Derek's college education?" My mother hesitated. "He chose community college. It was affordable." "Did you offer to help with tuition?" "He never asked." "Did you help Marcus with his college expenses?" Another hesitation. Marcus needed more support. "How much did you pay toward Marcus's education before he dropped out?" My father interjected. "We don't have exact figures. Your tax returns show deductions totaling approximately $45,000 for Marcus's educational expenses over 2 years. Derek's educational support deductions total 0. Is that accurate?" Neither parent answered. "Did you purchase a car for Marcus when he turned 16? "Yes." "Did you purchase a car for Derek?" "He got Marcus's old one. The one with the failing transmission that Derek had to pay to repair himself?" Silence. "Did you fund Marcus's food truck business, his day trading ventures, his cryptocurrency investments?" My father's face had gone red. "We help our children when they need it." "And Derek? Did you help him when he was sleeping on a cot in his workshop because he couldn't afford rent?" "We didn't know about that." "Did you ask?" The silence stretched long enough to make several jury members shift uncomfortably. Marcus took the stand on the 3rd day. He wore an expensive suit I suspected our parents had purchased for the occasion. His hair was styled perfectly. He smiled at the jury with practiced warmth. His testimony was a masterwork of victimhood. He spoke about wanting to help his younger brother succeed, about offering guidance and support only to be rebuffed. He described our relationship as strained but hopeful, claiming he had always believed we could work through our differences. "I just wanted us to build something together," he said, managing to sound both earnest and wounded. "Family means everything to me. When Derek started the business, I saw an opportunity for us to finally connect, to create something that would bring us closer." And the partnership agreement, Patterson prompted. Derek signed it willingly. We met at a coffee shop, discussed the terms, both agreed it was the right path forward. I was surprised as anyone when he filed this lawsuit claiming fraud. I don't understand why he's doing this. When Thomas stood for cross-examination, I saw Marcus's confidence flicker briefly. Mr. Webb, you testified that you met with your brother to sign the partnership agreement. Where was this meeting? A coffee shop. Downtown. Which one? Marcus hesitated. I don't remember the exact name. When was this meeting? About 4 years ago. The agreement is dated March 15, 2020. Were you in Austin on that date? Another hesitation. Thomas pulled out documents. Your social media shows you posting from Las Vegas on March 15, 2020. Photos from inside a casino, time-stamped that evening. Your credit card records show charges at Las Vegas restaurants and hotels for that entire week. How did you sign a partnership agreement in Austin when you were in Nevada? Marcus's composure cracked. I might have the date wrong. It could have been a different time. The notary who witnessed the agreement has testified the signing occurred on the date specified. Your parents have confirmed they witnessed the signing on that date. Yet you were photographed in Las Vegas, 1,000 miles away. How do you explain that? There must be some confusion. Let me clear up the confusion. This agreement was forged. Your signature is real because you signed it. Your brother's signature is forged because he was never present. Your parents witnessed a fraudulent document, and you, Mr. Webb, committed fraud to steal a business you had no part in building. Marcus looked toward our parents. Our mother had her hand pressed to her mouth. Our father stared straight ahead, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. I just wanted to be part of something, Marcus said, his voice smaller now. Derek had this successful business, and I had nothing. I thought if I was a partner, maybe I could finally have something too. So you admit the signature was forged? Patterson objected, but the admission hung in the air. Marcus had all but confessed on the witness stand. My testimony came last. I walked to the witness stand feeling strangely calm. Years of resentment and hurt had crystallized into something cold and clear. I was not there to perform emotion. I was there to state facts. Thomas guided me through my history. Working at the lumberyard in high school, apprenticing on weekends, taking community college classes at night, the years of eating cheap food and sleeping in my workshop. The slow growth of web restoration from a one-man operation to a legitimate business with employees and clients and a reputation built on quality work. Did you ever sign a partnership agreement with your brother? No. Did you ever agree to share ownership of your business with any family member? No. Did you ever receive any financial support from your parents for your business? No. Did you ever receive any support of any kind from your brother for your business? No. How did you build web restoration? I looked at the jury. Ordinary people. Some older, some younger. Some probably had difficult family relationships of their own. I built it alone, I said. Every dollar I invested came from wages I earned working other jobs. Every skill I learned came from seeking out mentors and practicing until I got it right. Every client I gained came from doing good work and building a reputation, one project at a time. I sacrificed vacations, relationships, comfort. I went years without buying new clothes because every spare dollar went back into the business. I built web restoration with my hands, my time, and my determination. No one helped me. No one invested in me. And now my brother wants to take half of everything because he filed forged paperwork with the state. Patterson's cross-examination was brief. He tried to suggest that family businesses often involve informal arrangements that are not documented. He implied that I was exaggerating my struggles for sympathy. He asked whether I thought it was appropriate to sue my own family. I think it's appropriate to protect what I built, I replied. I think it's appropriate to hold people accountable when they commit fraud. And I think it's appropriate to expect that my family would celebrate my success instead of trying to steal it. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When they returned, the courtroom felt charged with tension. My parents sat rigidly, Marcus beside them looking somehow smaller than when the trial began. The verdict was unanimous. Marcus was found liable for fraud, forgery, and attempted theft. My parents were found liable as co-conspirators. The forged partnership agreement was declared void. All claims on web restoration were dismissed. Judge Harrison delivered the judgment with her characteristic sternness. This case represents a troubling pattern of family dysfunction, transformed into criminal activity. The defendant Marcus Webb, with the assistance of his parents, attempted to steal a business he had no part in creating. He forged documents, filed false records with the state, and attempted to drain business accounts of over $300,000. That this fraud was perpetrated against his own brother makes it more disturbing, not less. She turned to look at my parents. The witnesses in this case, rather than observing a legitimate transaction, participated in fraud. They knew the signature was forged. They knew their son Derek had not agreed to any partnership. Yet they added their names to documents designed to rob him of his livelihood. Whatever family loyalty motivated this behavior does not excuse it. The judgment ordered Marcus to pay restitution for my legal costs, approximately $40,000. My parents were ordered to pay an additional $15,000 in damages. Any future attempts to claim ownership of web restoration or access business accounts would be treated as criminal acts and prosecuted accordingly. Marcus stood when the judgment was read, looking somehow lost. Our mother was crying again, but this time there was no performance in it. Our father remained silent, his face a mask of suppressed emotion. I felt nothing, not triumph, not vindication, not even relief. Just a bone-deep exhaustion and the strange emptiness of watching family relationships officially declared dead. Outside the courthouse, Thomas shook my hand. "Clean victory," he said. "The judgment is solid. They won't be able to challenge it on appeal. Thank you. For everything. What will you do now?" I looked across the parking lot. My parents were helping Marcus into their car. None of them looked back at me. "Go back to work," I said. "I've got a commission waiting. An 1890s secretary desk that needs restoration. The owner inherited it from her grandmother." Thomas smiled. "That's probably healthier than anything I'd recommend." I drove to my workshop instead of going home. The familiar smell of wood shavings and finish greeted me when I unlocked the door. My employees had kept things running during the trial, but there was a backlog of projects waiting for my attention. The secretary desk sat in my restoration bay, its damaged veneer and broken hardware waiting for patient hands to make it whole again. I ran my fingers over the wood grain, feeling the history embedded in its surface. This was real. This was mine. Not because paperwork said so, but because I had built the skills to do this work, built the reputation that brought clients to my door, built a life entirely through my own effort. The aftermath unfolded slowly over the following months. Marcus disappeared from social media. I heard through extended family that he had moved to a different city, trying to escape the public record of his fraud conviction. Whether he would start fresh or find new schemes to pursue, I did not know and did not care. My parents made one attempt at reconciliation about 2 months after the trial. My mother called, her voice carefully measured. "Derek, we need to talk. This has gone too far. Families don't sue each other. Families don't forge documents to steal from each other either. We were trying to help Marcus. He was struggling. You had so much success, and he had nothing. We thought if you shared the business, you thought you could take what I built and give it to him, because you've always thought he deserved more than me." Silence. "That's not true," my mother said finally. "We love both of you. You love the idea of me being useful to Marcus. You love the possibility that my success could fund his failures. But me as a person? You've never been interested in that. You're being unfair. I'm being honest. For the first time in my life, I'm being completely honest with you. And here's the truth. I don't want reconciliation. I don't want Sunday dinners or holiday visits. I want to live my life without people who see my achievements as something to exploit." She was crying when I hung up. I felt a brief pang of guilt before reminding myself of the text messages, the forged documents, the years of differential treatment. Guilt was a luxury I could no longer afford. Web restoration continued to grow. I hired 2 additional craftspeople, expanded into a larger workshop, started a training program for apprentices who reminded me of myself at their age, hungry to learn and willing to work. My reputation had actually benefited from the trial publicity. Clients appreciated the story of someone who had built something real and fought to protect it. New commissions came in from collectors who wanted to work with someone they could trust. I started dating a woman named Sarah, who owned a bookstore downtown. We met when she brought in an antique display case that needed restoration. Our first date was coffee, our second was dinner, and our third was a weekend trip to the coast where I did not check my phone once. "You know what I admire about you?" Sarah asked one evening while we were cooking dinner in my kitchen. "You built exactly the life you wanted. Not the life someone else planned for you. Not a compromise, exactly what you wanted. It took a while to figure out what that was. But you figured it out, and you didn't let anyone take it from you." I thought about the trial, about my parents' faces when the verdict was read, about Marcus's attempt to steal everything I had worked for. They had tried to take my business, my livelihood, my future. They had failed because I had been willing to fight. Sometimes I wondered if things could have been different. If my parents had treated me the same as Marcus, would I have developed the same determination? If they had supported me, would I have learned to support myself? There was no way to know. The past was fixed. Only the future remained malleable. A year after the trial, I received a letter. The return address was unfamiliar, but the handwriting was my grandmother's. She had passed away when I was 12, but this letter was new, written in a hand I did not recognize. It was from my grandfather's sister, a woman named Ruth who lived in Ohio. She had seen news coverage of the trial and wanted to reach out. "Your grandfather always said you reminded him of himself," she wrote. "Quiet and hardworking, the kind of person who builds things that last. He left you something in his will, but your parents handled the estate, and I always wondered if you received it. Given what I've learned about their behavior, I suspect you did not." Enclosed was documentation showing that my grandfather had left me his tool collection and $15,000 to start a business. The tools had been given to Marcus. The money had been absorbed into my parents' accounts. I sat with that letter for a long time. Another betrayal, older than I had known, part of a pattern that stretched back further than I had realized. My parents had been stealing from me my entire life, not just money, but opportunities, support, the basic acknowledgement that I deserved the same consideration as my brother. I did not pursue legal action for the inheritance. The amount was small compared to what the trial had already recovered. More importantly, I did not need it. I had built web restoration without my grandfather's bequest. I had succeeded without the support I should have received. But I kept the letter. A reminder that I had been right to trust my instincts, right to protect what I had built, right to walk away from people who saw me only as a resource to be exploited. Tonight, I'm sitting on the porch of the house I purchased last year. It is larger than my first place, with a workshop in the back where I can work on personal projects. Sarah is inside, reading. Her dog, a rescue mutt named Copper, is sleeping at my feet. The sky is turning orange and pink as the sun sets. Austin sprawls before me, full of people building lives and chasing dreams. Some will succeed. Some will fail. Some will have family support that lifts them up. Others, like me, will have family that tries to tear them down. I do not know what happened to Marcus. I do not know if my parents have found new ways to justify their behavior, or if some part of them understands what they did. It does not matter. They are not part of my story anymore. What matters is this. The workshop waiting for tomorrow's projects. The woman inside who loves me for who I am, not what I can provide. The business I built from nothing, which no forged document or family manipulation could take away. Some people inherit success. Some people have it handed to them on a silver platter, polished by parents who believe certain children deserve more than others. And some people build it themselves, piece by piece, sacrifice by sacrifice, until it is so completely theirs that no one can ever claim otherwise. I am the second kind of person. I always have been. And sitting here in the home I earned, watching the sunset paint the sky, I know that I would not have it any other way. The battle chose me. I fought it with everything I had, and in the end, I kept what was mine, not because a judge declared it, but because I had always been strong enough to defend it. That strength did not come from my family. It came from surviving them, and now finally I am free.